Most guys walk through life trapped in this comforting little illusion. They genuinely think attraction is just simple math, right? You're endlessly nice, always available, totally emotionally open, and boom, you're desired. Well, today we're analyzing the Machiavellian blueprints for psychological attraction, and we're going to shatter that illusion into 1,000 pieces. We're breaking down a dark psychology framework that doesn't treat human interaction like some Disney fairy tale. It treats it like a highly calculated game of influence. It's time to leave the comforting lies behind us. Let's get into it.
So why do most men just disappear into the background? Why do they get completely ignored? The source material we're looking at gives a pretty brutal answer. Predictability is the absolute fastest track to being completely forgotten. Think about it. When a woman knows exactly what you're going to do, exactly what you'll say, and exactly how available you are at all times, you're no longer a mystery. You're just safe. And in the realm of raw psychological attraction, safe is entirely invisible. The more predictable you become, the faster you get erased from her mind entirely. The core philosophy of this blueprint is simple, but it is ruthless. Attraction does not begin with comfort. It begins with tension. Make no mistake, this isn't about traditional flowers and chocolates romance. In many ways, what we're talking about here is psychological warfare. It's built entirely on curiosity, emotional impact, and controlled friction. Attraction ignites in the dark, in the unknown. It sparks when there's just enough tension to make the mind wander and wonder.
To really grasp how this works, we need to look at a historical master of power. Niccolo Machiavelli laid it out perfectly centuries ago. He wrote, "If you want people to value you, never reveal yourself completely." And the source applies this exact centuries-old rule straight to modern attraction. Listen to me on this. The most dangerous man in the room is never the loudest. He's not the one begging for attention or spilling his entire life story in the first 5 minutes. No, he's the guy holding his cards close to his chest, completely unfazed. He understands that absolute transparency strips away all of your value. You know, men constantly obsess over exactly what words to say. But according to this psychological blueprint, your words are completely secondary. Women are subconsciously reading a totally hidden language before you even open your mouth. They're reading your energy, they're deciphering your silences, they're calculating your true intentions, and most importantly, they are rigorously testing your emotional control. They can sense weakness, anxiety, and neediness a mile away. So how do you actually master this hidden language? Well, the source outlines 5 specific psychological arts. Art 1 is the power of silence. Look, most guys absolutely ruin their allure because they just can't stop talking. They are terrified of silence. They see a 2-second pause in conversation as this massive failure, so they rush to fill the void out of pure, unfiltered fear of losing her attention. But the Machiavellian expert, he knows silence isn't empty. Silence is a weapon. When you stay calm, when you intentionally pause before answering and you hold eye contact just a fraction of a second longer than society tells you to, you turn that silence into intense psychological pressure. Her internal anxiety starts to build up. She starts asking herself, wait, did I say something wrong? Is he judging me right now? Why does he seem so impossibly calm? You're forcing her to invest her own emotional energy into figuring you out. That mystery creates tension, and that tension keeps you firmly planted in her head. That pressure flows perfectly into art 2, controlled curiosity. Now, it's a basic human trait to want to feel understood, sure, but the source material issues a very stark warning here. If you rapid-fire too many questions too quickly, you don't look interested. You just look needy. You look like you're conducting a job interview because you're so desperate for her approval. The master of this tactic never interrogates. Instead, he uses curiosity to emotionally challenge his target. Picture this. She tells you, I connect with people really easily. The standard guy, he offers instant validation. He nods eagerly, agreeing with everything she says. But the Machiavellian response is entirely different. Instead of agreeing, he just tilts his head, looks at her, and calmly asks, really? Or do people just feel comfortable around the version of you that they see first? Do you feel that shift? You're not just another guy making surface-level small talk anymore. You just challenged her emotional complexity, and you threw her slightly off balance.
And that brings us to art 3, cold charm. Most men overreact to absolutely everything. In their desperation to please a woman, every photo she posts is beautiful, and every single thought she shares is just so amazing. The blueprint argues that this non-stop gushing validation completely kills your emotional impact. It's like money. When a currency is printed endlessly, it loses all of its value. Real influence, the source asserts, is built on scarcity. It comes from selective attention.
Non-stop validation just creates this comfortable, easily dismissed dynamic. But selective attention, That hits her like a physical force. You give compliments rarely, and when you do, they are unexpected and surgically specific. Imagine just calmly looking at her and stating, "You look different when you're quiet, almost dangerously attractive," and then you just stop talking. You let the silence sit there right after the compliment. That combination of rare warmth instantly followed by cold, composed silence, that does the heavy lifting in creating genuine magnetic influence. As we pull back the layers of these tactics, we hit Art 4, psychological mirroring. According to the text, this is quite literally one of the most powerful, covert techniques ever utilized in human interaction. It bypasses the logical brain entirely and speaks straight to the subconscious. Humans are biologically wired to trust and gravitate toward things that feel familiar to them. Mirroring is the highly calculated process of manufacturing that exact familiarity completely out of thin air. The real trick here is executing this without ever being detected. You subtly match her pacing. If she speaks slowly, you slow down. You match her emotional tone. If she gets intense, you become deeply grounded and focused. You even borrow her specific word choices and feed them back to her. When you execute this with a chilling, calm precision, the target starts to feel this inexplicable bond with you. She falsely believes, wow, this guy just inherently understands me. But in reality, you're simply orchestrating a subconscious emotional synchronization. Now we arrive at the final and undoubtedly the most dangerous tactic outlined in the blueprint. Art 5, the push-pull effect. The source material doesn't mince words here. Consistency, like we talked about earlier, creates comfort. But comfort is the absolute enemy of desire. To trigger true obsession, the human mind requires emotional unpredictability. The push-pull effect is literally designed to short-circuit the brain's reward system. You offer something highly valuable, and then you threaten to take it away. It relies on delivering a calculated, chronological whiplash. Step 1. You create a moment of deep connection and intense warmth. You make her feel entirely seen and understood. Step 2. The very next day, you pull back. You introduce emotional distance and coldness. You become busy, unbothered, maybe just slightly detached. Step 3 is the inevitable result: obsession. We are psychologically wired to chase what feels slightly out of our reach. That sudden drop in warmth triggers a desperate primal need to earn that connection back. Do I really have him, or am I losing him? That agonizing uncertainty right there, that severe emotional confusion, that is the exact mechanism that turns simple attraction into a deeply ingrained addiction. When a person is constantly spinning their wheels trying to figure out exactly where they stand with you, they are spending all of their mental energy on you. You become the puzzle they are desperately trying to solve. As we wrap up our analysis of these blueprints, the source leaves us with one absolute, fundamental law of power. The master of human desire controls attention. Words alone are weak. Anyone can talk, and trust me, everyone does. But very, very few men understand how to weaponize silence, curiosity, mirroring, and unpredictability to create real, lasting emotional impact. Machiavelli wasn't some dating coach. He was a master of manipulation and power dynamics. He knew that controlling someone's attention is the absolute key to controlling their entire reality. And that leaves us with one final, lingering thought for you to digest. After seeing the actual mechanics of this psychological warfare laid bare, the choice is entirely yours. Are you going to keep being predictable, transparent, and instantly forgotten? Or will you harness these arts, master your own emotions, and become the mystery that keeps her awake at night?